listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to David Mackey's Shining Side Out. That's right, coming to you from the sunburned country. That's where we are. And we're going to talk about, well, the hypothesis. But before we do that, do remember this is Listener Funded Radio, so please donate if you can. If you can't, that's okay. Times are tough all over. Tell people about the station, subscribe, like, share, comment. All of the things are good. If you see us in a while somewhere on some platform streaming our shorts, please watch them, please like them, please comment on them, or dislike them. That's okay. That's okay. Just tell us, maybe we've missed the mark. Maybe we've got rocks in our head. But we are talking about the hypothesis, and we are talking today. This is one of Dave's favorites, so I'll let him have it. But last week we spoke about very specifically some of the problems that we find in the scientific community when it comes to accepting wildly differing results from what was expected, right? If you're off by a couple of hundred years, even a couple of thousand years, you go, okay, fair enough. That's okay. If you're off by 250,000 years or some such, or even millions of years, you have a problem, okay?
That's time for self-reflection at that point, to be honest with you.
That's exactly right. And we showed you a couple of cases here. One, of course, was in 1992 July, Smithsonian Magazine published an article, "Petrified Footprints: A Puzzling Parade of Permian Beasts." Whenever they employ the alliteration, something is up. What it did. Now, the thing here is this is hundreds of millions of years out of whack. Some of these things, okay, hundreds of millions of years. So these tracks, be it birds or large mammals or dinosaurs, crisscrossing the tracks of dinosaurs should not exist. Forget the human footprints that are there. Okay, forget that. This sort of questions or puts to the test our entire idea of evolution and how we think things come about. And then, of course, we spoke about Elizabeth Steen McIntyre, who had her results verified twice independently by biostratigraphic researcher Sam Van Landingham in 2004 and 2006. So what she found, he verified. She found this in the 1970s. She had this tested and said, hey, this is a bit odd. She lost her career over it. And then some 30 years later, clearly with better testing methods and methodologies and processes and whatnot, and lab protocols, biostratigraphic researcher Sam Van Landingham twice reconfirmed her findings. Okay, that's significant, just to be clear. And what she found was that her dating of certain things to do with the population or the populating of the New World, specifically, of course, America, and in her case, specifically New Mexico, or Mexico rather, sorry, was out by 250,000 years. 250,000.
And Mickey, what was found
now, Dave,
at the very time in Africa? At the very time.
Oh, that's when they found. Right. Lucy was, yeah.
They
absolutely.
did.
Yeah.
And it was okay for Lucy to be dated back that far. They didn't mind the establishment, but they didn't like it.
That fit. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Correct.
And I think
that's really the problem, right?
This echoes of the bureaucracy around it, about how tenure and grants, and I put my whole career on it, and the thing that I like, it's kind of a visual thing. When they get to a certain level, they just close the textbook because there's nothing left to learn. They take
my brain is full. Can I go home?
That's right. So they take a stand on the topic that they've researched all their life, and then they just There's a ceiling on it now. Just put it over there. Yeah, it's done. Don't have to worry about it. But sir, we just found this. No, you didn't. No, it doesn't work. And that's really bad. In science, we would still... Guess where we'd be still, Mackie? We'd be looking for a bigger board with a bigger nail. Do you know what I'm saying?
We wouldn't have any nails, Dave. Look at you dreaming of nails, eh? Look at you, dreamer.
Oh, silly. What was I thinking?
Dreaming of nails, you are. Funny. No, but you're right, though.
So what is this is my segue. What is the standard response to evidence that does not fit?
Do you want to take it? I know you love it. I'm happy to take it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is standard. Look, we've done a lot of research into this, and we've looked at a lot of people trying to debunk things. It's what happens, and this is a standard response. Just imagine you find an artifact or anything really that doesn't fit the mold, and it doesn't really comply with the science of the day. Now, Carl Bow, this is an alleged iron pot and coal in 2006, and other strict creationists. So creationists like to take the angle, oh well, clearly evolutionary science is wrong because we found all this evidence which clearly shows that we are correct and God made everything, etc., whatever the case may be, right? Now, I don't take that view, and I'll tell you the view that Dave and I take after I tell you what happened here. Carl Bow and other strict creationists have claimed that in 1912, an electric company employee in Arkansas broke open a large lump of coal, revealing a man-made iron pot. The original coal bed was reportedly a mid-Pennsylvanian age, about 300 million years old by conventional geology. Bow and others suggested that this finding overturns the standard geological timetable. The following account is presented on Bow's Creation Evidence website, followed by an advertisement encouraging readers to purchase a cast replica of the pot nodule, etc., etc., etc. The following text is a letter from Frank Kennard, the man who found the iron pot embedded in a large lump of coal. The Creation Evidence Museum has a copy of this letter on file. Sulphur Springs, Arkansas, November 27, 1948. While I was working in the municipal electric plant in Thomas, Oklahoma in 1912, I came upon, in Thomas, Oklahoma, I came upon a solid chunk of coal which was too large to use. I broke it with a sledgehammer. The iron pot fell from the center, leaving the impression or mold of the pot in a piece of the coal. Jim Stull, an employee of the company, witnessed the breaking of the coal and saw the pot fall out. I traced the source of the coal and found that it came from the Wilburton, Oklahoma mines. Signed, Frank J. Kennard, sworn before me in Sulphur Springs, Arkansas, this 27th day of November 1948. Junior L. Eldred, NP. My commission expires May 21, 1951, Benton County. So she's a justice of the peace here that obviously took down the oath, I guess, of these two people. Now, this is the response. One problem with this kind of evidence is that it relies heavily on the veracity and memories of the individuals involved. Since people commonly lie or are otherwise fallible in this regard, scientifically anecdotal evidence is not worth much. One might ask, why would these men make up such a story? There might be any number of other reasons, for a gag, attention, etc. However, even if they're telling the truth as far as they knew it, there's an aspect of the report about which they could be mistaken, and on which the significance of the find could rest. Now, and I need to quickly make a statement here. There are literally hundreds of things that had been found in various mines across the world, but most in America. Hundreds. And around that time, like late 19th, early 20th century, again, because people were still hand mining, if you will. And these were in miners specifically, but these were people that were using coal, right? And what he did here, because the chunk was too big, he whacked it to make it smaller with a sledgehammer. And the iron pot happened to be in there, embedded in the center of it. Now, the iron pot is not the only story. There's so many other things: gold chains, a pestle, a mortar, even human remains, right, that are turning up in strata they shouldn't, hundreds of millions of years old. Again, there's some really great work done by Richard Cremo.
Even the
whale. Got his books.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I do, absolutely. Absolutely. The hunting evidence and the butchering evidence. So, look, this is a thing. It is a thing, and you can deny it all you want. And I think as we look more and more into it, and maybe one day we will open the Vatican Library, and who knows, maybe even the Smithsonian, and we'll find all the things that have been kept from us. We'll find all the things that point to the true age. But why do Dave and I spend so much time on this? It is a fairly important part of the hypothesis. Because the hypothesis states that we've been around in our present form as human beings, more or less, for a long, long time, maybe even hundreds of millions of years. We just don't remember it. And maybe there were times when the human races as they existed were completely wiped out and then restocked, if you will, of which we also have mythological evidence, right? When I say mythology, we have stories of that happening, where the flood story is probably the most prominent, and we have stories that speak of the flood or the time after the flood, when people were grown on trees, or the story of Deucalion, who throws rocks behind him that pop into existence as human beings. But essentially starting a new branch of the human race. So we might be humanity 25.3, all I know.
And the Sumerians' tale from the Anunnaki saying that they created us from what was 100%. Already a hominid.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really quite interesting, and maybe that's another thing. Maybe the human race is, like I said, a lot older, and in its process has created other human races that maybe not as pure as the original human race. I don't know. All I'm saying is there's a lot of evidence, a lot of even anecdotal evidence that points to the fact that someone like us, maybe not exactly like us, has been around for a very, very long time indeed. Because we are using bowls and mortar and pestle and gold chains, and they're human-sized objects that are being found. But they also find things that are massive, like swords that are huge, and other things. I mean, if you look at some of the building sites that we have around the world, these are massive doors, massive stairs. Obviously, the building blocks themselves are massive. Again, the question becomes, why would you build with these blocks? It makes no sense. Unless you didn't even think about it. Like, let me put it this way. If you pick up a brick, you're a bricklayer, right? And you pick up a brick and you start building the wall, and it's like 1,000 bricks, and you build your wall or house or whatever you're building with those bricks. You don't really think about why you're using the brick. I mean, the brick is there and you use it because that's what you do, right? It's no amazing thing for you that you would take a brick and use it with other bricks to make something. And maybe in a similar fashion, whoever built these megalithic structures worked with these stones as they were in the similar kind of mindset. What do you mean? Why? Because why not? What are you talking? I don't understand the question, right? When you say, why are you doing this? Because, well, these are the rocks I use. What else would I use? So different kinds of mindsets, different kinds of capabilities. And this is something we can't do today easily. We can't do this today easily. And some of the things that we see, we can't do at all. We can't do it all.
That's right.
We could not do it today. We can't lift easily, or even at all, 1,000 or 1,500 ton block.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Never mind the cost. Never mind the cost. Forget the cost. I give you all the money in the world. Here you go. Just do it. Right? And certainly not with the tools that we think our ancestors had. They're completely
exactly
impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I love it when they say they have this small, like, maybe 5-ton block, and they use these palm trees as rollers, and you go, okay, see, that's how it's done. There you go. 50 people. the weight to friction ratios when you've got 1,000-ton stone on palm tree or whatever kind of rollers, maybe European oak.
Let's pretend a minute it was palm trees. 1,000 tons of that dimension on a row of continuous palm trees would just turn them to pulp.
Yeah, it'd be mush.
It's not enough. So they don't have enough structural integrity in the palm tree itself to withstand its proportion of 100 divided by 1,000 divided by 100. It can't do it. Even though it's 100 palm trees under there, it makes no difference.
Yeah. And I know this is hard for people to understand. So let me give you an example of what this means. So structural engineering relies on the materials themselves to have a certain nature to them. Like the materials that are used have certain coefficients, friction, weight bearing, load bearing, etc. Right? Now, before the invention of carbon nanotubes, we couldn't build a space elevator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, titanium, carbon steel, none of these materials were strong enough to be built up into the length that was.
Actually, not even to withstand its own weight over distance.
That's the thing.
Let alone carry anything.
The structure would have been so massive that it would have collapsed, to Dave's point, under its own weight. Carbon nanotubes are incredible as a structural material. The weight to strength ratio, the load they can carry, it's just phenomenal. But now we have a material. My point is, we now have a material that would allow us to build a space elevator. Now, the same goes for these palm tree rollers, right? Yeah, 5 ton, 10 tons, 20 tons, maybe even 50-ton stones, right? You can roll along. Now, bear in mind, there are millions of these stones in the pyramids. So you need a multiple of the millions, okay? Because they get used up, of the palm trees. So that's a whole industry of palm tree choppers, okay? And restockers, as it were, because you have to replant them, I would guess, in order just to transport those stones. And, because palm trees get used up quick, I would think. The friction, the weight, etc. Anyway, I'm not here to debate that. What I am debating is that we simply do not have the mindset that they did. We do not have the capabilities that they had. Right? Because it was done. No one is disputing that it was done. Here it is. There's the evidence. It's there. The thing is there. How did it get there? I have no idea. How did we do it? I don't know. Why did they do it this way? I don't know.
We know one of the answers is because they could.
Because they could.
And
but
why
that doesn't really answer the question, right?
Because we can't.
Because we can't. You talk to a stonemason, and I mean this, right? Go and find a stonemason, like someone that does this as a professional job, and then say, "Look, this is what I want you to do." And then you describe whatever monolithic structure. Start hard. Start with Baalbek. Start with the 3 massive stones that are lifted 3 stories up into the air, and then the platform that is built on which the temple of Heracles rests. Okay, now Jupiter, the Jupiter temple, not Heracles, the Jupiter temple. Okay, just do that. Anyway, what's next, Dave?
Well. This is the interlude, Becky.
Beautiful.
There are, of course, problems with dating. So when you find something, there are problems with trying to accurately estimate the age of it. three critical assumptions can affect the result during radioisotope dating. And number one is the initial conditions of the rock sample are accurately known. Number two, the amount of parent or daughter elements in a sample has not been altered by processes other than radioactive decay. That'll come later. Now, number three, the decay rate or half-life of the parent isotope has remained constant since the rock was formed. And Mekki, there's an aside here, and it says, I highly recommend reading both books, even just for a different point of view, Forbidden Archaeology and Devolution.
Yeah, by Michael Cremo. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, quick data point. So humanity just might be older than we had previously thought. Well, not entirely true. Eastern cultures, specifically the Indian civilization, has no issues at all with acknowledging the great antiquity of humanity. It is the West, the newest of all of the cultures, that largely subscribes to a linear version of history with an agreed upon dawn some 6 million years ago, the advent of our hominid ancestors, according to their current knowledge. There seems to be, and we have discussed, ample evidence for high civilizations similar in capability to our own, and some may be more advanced, albeit displaying different characteristics, such as different technologies and energy sources, etc. Mekki, I think we can just you could do this. Let's do them alternatively. Pyramids.
You do the pyramids. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll do it. Yep.
Yep.
So pyramids, right? I mean, they're perfectly aligned to all the cardinal points, which is, and they still are. Virtually no subsidence. Now, what does that mean? In modern building, about 10 centimeters every 100 years is acceptable. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if your building sinks that much into the ground, that's acceptable. And the pyramids, even though they have great weight, have shown virtually no subsidence, mostly because they're, of course, built on a granite platform of bedrock. No inscriptions inside the pyramids. No, none. And the ones that do exist are likely fake, because the only cartouche found in the pyramid spelling Khufu's name is a fake, recognizable through a spelling mistake. The name was not written with the correct signs, Sif, quail, viper, quail, which are representing the consonants K, W, F, Wu, Khufu. It had a solar disk, a ray, at the beginning instead of the Sif, the K. Instead of the Sif, a circle with several horizontal lines, a circle with a single dot in the middle was written there. The name in the pyramid thus is spoken Reufu, not Khufu. This mistake, unthinkable for ancient Egyptian writers, is explainable on the background of 1837. In that year, and this is interesting, an academic book about hieroglyphics had been published, the Materia Hieroglyphica, in which the name Khufu was written with a mistake. The lines of the Sif were so close together that they appeared in the print like a massive disk. Another way of writing Ray. And it is known that Weiss had this book with him on his excavation. So Weiss is the guy that actually found this. Okay. The whole 1837 expedition stood under a bad sign. The money had run out and nothing what had been hoped for had been achieved. So a member of the expedition planned to spice up, this is speculation, the results. And he went into the newly discovered chambers the moment the blast fumes vanished, and he painted, equipped with the fatal misprint from the book, some texts to the walls. And there he painted the name Khufu as he found it in the book, with a solar disk and not with a Sif. The faker, presumably J.R. Hill, also made another mistake. Instead of hieroglyphics, he used a letter system only used for papyri, a handwriting called hieratics. Now, a lot of people don't bother to go into research that deep because it's just too hard. I really like to go into research this deep. So the only writing that has been found inside the pyramids right? This is the only example of it.
Yeah.
It's likely a forgery.
Meki, you know the King's Chamber. No, sorry, the King's Burial Place, which is miles away. It's littered.
Yes.
Littered with diagrams.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hieroglyphs.
Not a single
There's
piece
not a
of
millimeter.
wall.
That's right.
Okay, I can fit something here.
Do you know what I liken it to? It's when there's someone at your work who's leaving and you're the last person to get the card and it's completely scrolled on from top to bottom, back to front, and there's nowhere for you to write anything.
I know.
Have you had that before? I've had that before.
Oh,
it's very funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's sad because you want to, so you end up writing on the picture or something on the front. Who knows, right? Anyway. So megalithic structures are found all over the world. There's some two striking things that stand out to me about this, Meki, and I know you too, and that's because they have similar tooling marks. Think about that for a minute. All around the world, in a time when they weren't meant to be communicating with each other, they're all doing the same kind of work with the same kind of tools in the same way to make the same styled connections between stones with no mortar, which is just well beyond the capabilities that we should acknowledge that they weren't capable of it. That since you've
100%.
painted the picture that there's no comms and there's no moving of people around, and it's way before we would have had, any bleeding between all of our civilizations at the time, because, let's say South America was so isolated from everyone, there was really no way of getting this kind of conversation to Egypt or anywhere else in the world, or Middle Europe for that matter, according to their history, not ours. Now, the similar appearance in structures with the same tools and the same methods is well beyond the acknowledgement of our current establishments. They don't want at all to admit it, because then it immediately it puts holes in their story. So Baalbek, Meki, Baalbek is amazing. Go ahead.
Okay, so Baalbek is obviously a site in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. It's hard to get to, considering the ongoing conflicts in the area. It's a UNESCO listed World Heritage Site, and the Jupiter Temple here. This is important, right? It's a Jupiter temple that was meant to have been built by the Romans. So nobody is disputing that the Romans built a temple structure at Baalbek. I'm not disputing it. I don't think anyone else is. The Jupiter temple structure. However, the platform on which it stands is clearly a lot older and seems to be broken down into three very distinct construction phases. Right, with the oldest showing the largest stones. Okay, 3 1,000-ton monoliths, about 3 stories off the ground, are part of this particular platform. There are several other, even greater than 1,000-ton stones still in the quarry, so there must have been a tools down event of some sort. Or maybe it was completed in a different fashion. And again, the question is why do you need 3 1,000-ton stones 3 stories off the ground? I mean, if you had these stones, then you'd put them at the bottom. It's a lot less work. Because today, we have to build specifically cranes that have this kind of load capacity. Because the crane in the world that could lift it, we would have to specifically build it. And how they would have done that, I mean, this is not ropes and pulleys kind of stuff, everybody. Okay. Which brings us to the Inca walls, Dave.
Perfect fit is the first description that everyone has. And the next one is no mortar. And they have survived earthquake after earthquake. And yet, there they are. It is
Yeah.
it is as though that kind of structure is earthquake proof.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how you rattle it, it'll settle back to the way, because there's no single design for any of the stones. They're occupying a unique position in the wall. There's not a single stone that you can take out of the wall and replace into another spot in the wall. They're all differently shaped. Some have 8, 16 sides. It doesn't matter. We can't do it today. We don't do it today because it's nonsense work. It just costs too much money and effort. We've decided that the smaller the stone we create, the more versatile its use can be. So that's why we ended up with bricks. Bricks are easily transported. They're easy to work. We use mortar. But then it's only as good as the mortar, the structure, because we have a 1 to 2, 2 to 1 building method with brick. And the Incas never did. They had a 1 to many. Everyone was a 1 to many. And with a gap between so fine that a cigarette paper or a razor blade couldn't go into.
That's it.
And who's going to... Becky, this is the same conversation we have all the time. And this is, who is drawing the piece that you send down to the quarry for them to quarry this single piece for this single part of the wall and have it shipped up and then placed and slid straight into place? Who does that?
But I think it's Bob. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that was the wrong question. Who? Why would they do that? Because it seems completely ridiculous. Unless
AutoCAD.
Unless AutoCAD, yes. Unless, of course, like a jigsaw puzzle, the whole thing was pre-planned, and then that you do it all. And I could only imagine if I was quoting up the work, I would go, surely we can use bricks. Oh, he doesn't want bricks.
Right?
Uh-huh. Well, if he's paying the money, I don't care what shape they are.
Yes, and see, this is always, for me, this is the kicker, right? Again, I know we just talked about it just now, but I just don't understand why you would do this. And again, my answer is probably because you didn't think about it. It's just what you did.
You could.
So you put your shoes on in the morning or whatever, underwear first. Okay. But
that got me out
I'm
of
not a
trouble
superhero.
so many times.
I know, right? But it certainly it bears thinking about it, right? And
but what, Becky, the thing we haven't talked about is scoop marks. There are scoop marks
that's right.
in these quarries, and I've got some images on screen that look like scoop marks. We have the possibility that they were softened somehow.
Yes, absolutely. There's a scientist in South America at work right now who also appears on Graham Hancock's Apocalypse, I think, show, or Ancient Apocalypse, season 2, I think. But essentially, what he says is, look, there's no doubt in my mind. He says that these stones were softened somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you soften that? How do you do that? I mean, how do you affect the molecular structure of stone?
Mm-hmm.
Heat it. Sure, heat makes perfect sense. You heat it. But there's no scorch. There's no evidence of
vitrification is detectable. You can see when you heated up a rock to that extent.
Yeah, but the odd thing is, I mean, it would completely immolate anything in that tunnel. This is a small little tunnel. So if you're in there, you get the rock, you are just ash now. Thank you very much. So look, it's really odd. Again, is that possible? There's a story of the Amazon where Colonel Fawcett. Now, Colonel Fawcett was an explorer that explored the Amazon like no one before him. He had a lot of stories, but one story was that either he or he had heard of someone telling it. A person was running through a field of these. I guess they looked like
flowers or some plants or something.
They were thick leaved, almost cactus-like kind of plants. They certainly looked like that, and he ran through it. And when he had crossed the field, he found that his boots were fine, but his spurs had melted off, right? And there was another incident, and I think it was by Fawcett as well, but I think other naturalists might have reported the same thing, where they saw this bird fly to a plant and get its leaf and rub the leaf on the rock face. And then once it had done that, it would proceed to
peck at
like
it.
a woodpecker.
Yeah.
Peck and create a nest in the sheer rock face for its young. But first, smearing it or rubbing it with that particular leaf. And the truth is this: the Amazon, and I guess it bears talking about this at some moment, because the reason we have this section here is to highlight the incongruences in our understanding of civilization, right? All the things that aren't covered by orthodox science, all the mysteries that are simply, silenced out of the way, right? And all of everything we've discussed here is pretty much dead. So you can't just accept it and go, oh yeah, this is what happened. Well, we'll prove it. Prove it happened like that. My point is this: the Amazon is proving to be an incredibly mysterious place. It was populated by millions of people, maybe tens of millions of people. We're finding city-like structures all the time. Now with LiDAR, we're finding this black earth. In some places, it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet deep, which is like super earth. Everything grows there, and it's made. It's manufactured. It's not a natural substance. So someone made it, and it over hundreds or maybe thousands of years, it has remained as useful as it was when it first was put down. We now see that there must have been massive irrigation systems in place. In fact, it looks like the entire Amazon basin was some kind of parkland, right? And of course, over time, rivers, especially a massive river system like the Amazon, they change flows. The arms of the river change the way they go about the landscape, and this is just what happens in nature. So we don't find a lot of evidence, obviously, but LiDAR has now given us a great insight. But imagine that. The entire Amazon basin, a parkland for a civilization that has completely disappeared. Okay? And there's this drug called ayahuasca. Now, this is a very complex drug, which is said to evoke mystic-like trances that let you see deeper realities. Whatever. I've never taken it, so I can't speak to it. But the composition of the drug is so complex, right? In just the right quantities with just the right ingredients, and if you get it wrong in any of these measures, it's completely useless. But this is not something that you just throw together overnight. There was a science behind this. And science, of course, speaks to civilization, speaks to time, speaks to people having time to do science, if you will, right? And it is clear that if you're building a civilization that spans the Amazon basin, you have a measurement system in place that everybody uses. You communicate across great distances. When you build something, you're building it to certain standards, right? All of this speaks to a very highly advanced civilization. And now, we don't even know who they were. There's a story of some conquistadors coming across a city like that in the Amazon, which was full of gold, not El Dorado, but similar story, with tens of thousands of inhabitants. And they look around and they thought that this city was even more advanced than any of the European cities they had come from. We're talking like this is the 14th, 15th century, right? And then they made it back to civilization, and then others followed in their footsteps, but they couldn't find the city, which was so amazing and cosmopolitan and advanced, right? And chances are now we think that the jungle reclaimed it after the conquistadors unwittingly left smallpox or measles or whatever with the natives, which of course
they want more blankets.
The story is not that they did it deliberately, but people now believe that may very well have been what happened, where they just inadvertently killed the people of that civilization.
Well, it would happen today if we found people.
Yeah.
So
correct. No, and in fact, it's funny. War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells, right? His final defeat of the Martian aliens was through the bacteria and viruses.
That's right.
Very insightful. But again, think of a civilization that spans the Amazon basin, and now we don't even have a story of them.
That's right.
And which brings me to the next thing, Dave, and maybe you can take the next few ones if you want, or I'll take them, whatever. But we have these structures everywhere, underwater structures of Japan, of Bimini, in the Indian Ocean. We have these structures, right? The roads going into the water, right? We know that the water levels rose. We know there was a lot more arable land around the equator, about 14,000, 15,000. We know all that. We're looking in all the wrong places. Think about all the technology people are talking about, in mythology, like fairy tales, like Vimanas, flying machines, voice-controlled doors, open sesame, flying chariots, biblical references, right? Flood myths, and we spend a lot of time, Dave, on floods. Oh my God. And they're all similar.
But the flying shield was also another before we got flying saucer.
Yeah, 100%. They're paintings depicting a battle in the sky. What? What?
Was it the 1700s?
It was in fairly recent times, absolutely. Right. The one thing that I find fascinating, because I'm interested in linguistics. So Charles Berlitz, who is the grandson of the founder of the Berlitz language schools, he wrote a couple of books, Atlantis, Bermuda Triangle, etc. And these were the first books I read on those subjects. And he found that there was a lot of linguistic similarities between both sides, or languages on both sides of the Atlantic. And Atl is one, denoting water. Atlas, the Atlas Mountains. Chocolatl means bitter water. So Atl, right? Atl is Aztec for water. And there are many other linguistic similarities across the world as well, which don't make any sense unless these people or these peoples had been in contact somehow with each other at some point. But there's more, Dave, right? It's just crazy stuff, really.
Yeah, so the Swift mentions Phobos and Deimos and their specific properties in Gulliver's Travels from 1726, when they were only discovered in 1877. They are both moons of Mars. Isn't that extraordinary? I think it is. What about the old maps? The old maps showing geographical features that should have been unknown at the time of the map's creation, and awareness of the Earth's curvature before that official discovery. And some of those old maps show Antarctica. Was it the Reese map, wasn't it?
Yep.
So it shows it without ice.
Go figure.
How is that even possible? But there it is.
These are all the questions we should be asking. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I think forcing the issue, forcing science to answer the question, and for them to come to terms with the answer. I'm okay with the answer. How about you, Mackie?
I would love the answer, my friend. But as soon as you've got someone's personal interest at stake, someone's career, someone's livelihood, someone's reputation, this is the thing in academia. So corporations are all about profit.
Yeah,
that's what they do. In academia, it's all about respect and position. You're the expert. You're the this field. Everybody bows to your expertise. That's how you get your money. That's how you get your stipend. That's how you get funding, etc., etc. People read your books. In fact, your books are being used as teaching materials.
That's right.
Right. But it's the same kind of blind single-mindedness. So if profit drives you, okay, that's all that drives you. You don't care about anything else. But if it's just this if academia drives respect, authority, or knowledge, right? And this is what this is: authority or knowledge. Who gave you the right to come up with a new theory? Who are you? Who are you that you would come? I mean, look at Darwin and the uphill battle that he faced. Galileo. They burned Giovanni Bruno. I think Giovanni was his first name. Because he said the Earth was round. They burned him at the stake. Einstein faced massive opposition.
Yeah.
Any new idea is, even if it's accepted now, even if the idea is now, yeah, that's what it is. But don't you know that, fool? Everyone knows that. It was fought tooth and nail initially.
Yes.
And I suspect that Dave and I might have been burnt at the stake potentially in the olden days. But all we could have seen, we could have just given in like Galileo and said, okay, fine. It's not round.
Okay, do you know what? I don't think I could do that at all.
I don't know, maybe not.
I'd end up incarcerated in my own house because it's the same thing. It's like me poo-pooing dark matter, Becky. I can't understand how they've got to come up with more excuses to keep their dream alive. Yeah, and it's actually the same as the forever expanding universe, which is completely ludicrous. But you know,
so let's just be clear. Now, this is actually a perfect example. I love it. So we have something today in astrophysics that is something that is called dark matter and dark energy.
That's right.
Why do we have this? Okay, well, gravity appears not to be strong enough to be holding the galaxies together. So everything is expanding all the time in all directions. What does that mean? Everything is moving away from us all the time in all directions. That shouldn't happen. Gravity should prevent that. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, no, because my thought is that is the established way of thinking.
Yeah, sorry, it is, absolutely. So that's what they're saying. So gravity is a weak force. In fact, gravity is considered a weak force if you look at magnetism, right? A magnet can easily pick up a piece of metal.
It's millions of times stronger than gravity.
It is. So it's a tiny little force. Now, there's a reason some people believe that to be the case, because they think gravity is split across the multidimensional reality. So gravity is the one thing that goes across all the multiverse. Maybe. I don't know. But in order to explain this, they came up with something called dark energy. So dark energy is the force that pushes these galaxies away from each other, right? And in these calculations, it turns out there isn't enough stuff in the universe either. So number one, gravity is weak. There's some kind of mysterious force pushing everything apart, which is dark energy. But now it turns out there isn't enough matter in the universe. Like there's not enough stuff, like planets and solar systems, whatever, right? There isn't enough to fit the model, right? In fact, there's 98% not enough.
That's right.
Or something ridiculous, maybe 96 or 95%, but
right?
It's high. It's high. Right. It's high.
And
so what do they invent?
The forever expanding universe is it falls back on the simple principle that the Doppler effect is what they're able to the indicator is the Doppler effect. And so when you view something, it's redshifted, meaning it's going away from you. Just like sound waves in our atmosphere, if say an emergency vehicle is driving towards you, it's pitched up higher than it would be if it was stationary next to you. And as it drives away, the sound waves are elongated and therefore they're stretched, and that actually reduces the tonal sound that you hear and is pitched down. That's the term pitch. So they think that everything they're seeing out there is light being Doppler affected, meaning it must be moving away from us. That premise is then supported by and causal to the ever-expanding universe and the need for dark energy and dark matter. Whereas my belief is, and now I have some equations to prove it, someone else has done it, and that is that we're just seeing the depreciation of light energy over time. And therefore, the further away it is, the more red-shifted it is, and the further away after visible light, it ends up being turned into microwave radiation, spectrum, and then down to long radio waves. And that's why we can't see everything that's so far away. We have to look in the radio spectrum and then artificially create it back to light again so that we can visualize it ourselves. This is the annoying thing, that they have to keep adding, building, stacking up reasons to continue to believe that the universe is expanding, whereas mine is so simple, takes one premise, and that is that light deteriorates over time. That's it. And that supports everything in its current structure without having to add any extra things to it. It's kind of making the light, the string theory, how that kind of came and went, and people realized that people made entire careers on string theory, but it can never be proved. Well, if the amount of time, say 1 million years from now, will still not be any closer to proving whether string theory is real or not. And it's brilliant. We could come up with any terminology which would end up being unprovable, and then sell it as an idea and sell books and live off it. The Planck length is beautiful. Yep. I love it. I love what it means. And that the entire universe itself, because just while we're talking about a universe, the entire universe is just a matrix of points, and there's nothing between the points. So if you write music into a music generator of any, they call it DAW now, digital audio workstation. If you were to write music in, or type music, or play a piano in, it'll show you all the computer analyzed notes that aren't in time. And you can just highlight the whole thing and say, well, this is the timing that I want it to be adhered to. And it immediately erases all the notes that shouldn't be there, puts the notes that should be there, and moves them just ever so slightly because of your errors, which is human, but to make it perfect, like you could write it then and notate it and sell it as notated music. That is what our universe is like. You could quantize, that's the term for making it fit the distances, and you could quantize, and everything else in our universe is quantized, like digital music, like the music in an MP3 or a CD player music. It's digital. There's no analog. There's no bits between each point. It is just, it's there, it's not there, and then it's there in the measured Planck length, which is the smallest unit of measure in the entire universe. And if that is the case, it's like pixels on a screen, and the whole thing's digital. We live in a simulation, and this is where science is today. Not me. I'm echoing what I appreciate that they've discovered, but it's their discovery, not mine, and I tend to believe them. It's like, I think 60% more likely we're in a simulation than the 40% that we're not. Meckie's nodding.
Crazy, isn't it?
We're at the end of the show, by the way.
Yeah, but if you think about it, mathematically speaking, it's more likely that we're all figments of our own imagination, well, to some extent anyway, rather than exist in reality. Look, next week, we'll quickly talk about the moon, very quickly talk about Bode's Law, because it's important. And then we're going to share with you the Atrahasis epic.
I love that.
Which we have here in abridged form, but it's really, really, really interesting. So you want to listen to that. It's about 5,000-6,000 years old.
No, but while you're at it, between shows, something great is going to come up. All you need to do is like, share, subscribe, and comment on any of our material that you find anywhere in the wild to help support us, support the station as well, and try to get this message out. Try and let people know that we're talking about the things that you like too. But in the meantime, with the geopolitics the way it is, Becky, what do we ask everyone to do?
Be safe!